Mr. Sasa, we won't ask you where you are right now, but we will ask you, maybe give us a quick update on how is Myanmar doing right now? What is the situation in Yangon and in the rest of the country?
It's deeply chaos. The people of Myanmar, my people, are living under fear, under siege by illegal and illegitimate regimes of the military. And even today, they have killed some 5 people already. And it's total 60 people been killed who are peacefully protesting, just asking for their freedom and their democracy. And they just there peacefully. My people are peaceful people. But now we have got these military generals who are supposed to protect the people from any kind of acts of terrorism. But now they are acting terrorism against the people of Myanmar.
Okay. Now, Dr. Sasa, again, just by way of background, Filipinos are very much interested in what's happening in Myanmar, but just so we understand the context also, what is the committee representing the Union Parliament of Myanmar? We know that the country right now is in the grips of the military junta. What is the committee, particularly this committee that appointed you as envoy to the United Nations?
On the 1st of February, it was the day when the new sections of parliaments of Myanmar are to take place. But the military junta, they come by guns and weapons and stop the parliamentarians to enter into the building and surrounded all the parliamentarians' building with smoky guns. And they arrest them and they put them into lockup. And that very moment, this brave and decisive member of parliament, elected by the people of Myanmar, for the people of Myanmar, bravely set up together and hold the sections in their prison cells. And they formed the committee representing the parliaments of Myanmar. And that is the parliaments of Myanmar that I'm representing to United Nations and to international communities around the world. It was the elections 8th of November 2020 when my people, 36 million voters, went to elections and elect a representative, democratically free and fair. But that result of elections was stolen by guns, by smoky guns and gunpointers. Now our leaders, including our president, President U Mint, our state councillor, our leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, are being detained illegally and unjustified.
Dr. Sasa, well, just to be clear, because Filipinos may not be that familiar with your system, we don't have a parliament here, we have a Congress, which is a bit different. So in other words, you represent the members of your parliament, especially those who have been put in jail by the military leaders of your country.
Yes, that's correct. It's like a House of Congress and House of Senators. The same, there's a lower house and upper house in the parliament. So I am representing both upper house and lower house of the parliament. Both of the parliaments, lower house of parliament and upper house of parliaments are called Union Parliament as together.
But I also understand that I think a third of Parliament is composed of military appointees or military officials. Is that correct? And how does that play into the whole thing?
The military generals are determined to control the politics of Myanmar by drafting the constitution that is known as 2008 constitutions. They have drafted the constitution for 20 years. The constitution promised the military generals the ultimate autonomy and the veto power on the politics. And that constitutions promised the interest of the generals, not interest of the people. So according to their constitutions, that is the big problem in Myanmar and my country. So in that constitution, they guaranteed 25% of the seats in the House of Parliament, both in lower house and in upper house. That means that always there will be not elected member of parliament, 25% from the army generals. And they will be appointed by commander-in-chief of the generals army, the army of Myanmar. And at the same time, their constitutions promise Minister of Defense has to always be general, and Minister of Home Affairs always have to be general. Again, Minister of Border Affairs has to be always general, and then one vice president has to be general. So that means they gave themselves 4 cabinet ministers out of 10 ministers of cabinet, including that 25% of member of parliament and commander-in-chief of the army generals. So that means that everything they have taken away from the people of Myanmar, according to the constitution that they have created.
The generals are proposing that they will hold elections after they lift the state of emergency. Is that acceptable to you?
It's meaningless. We don't need another election. We already have free and fair and democratic elections on the 8th of November 2020. So asking for another election is stupid and crazy and unacceptable, is unjustified. And again, it's illegal, it's illegitimate. Because we already have legitimate elections. We already have legal elections under the constitution created by the generals themselves. So they cannot afford to lose in elections because they lost heavily on election with their proxy parties that they have formed under the military generals. That means that they just like to get into power again and again. So they produce 10.4 million voter list frauds. They allege those lists, we don't know where they came from. We don't know where they produce. There's no evidence of the voter fraud. International observer, a local observer of election all stated that it's all free and fair and democratic. That means that they just use those produce, they have manufactured 10.4 million voters frauds, maybe for military battalions. They print a lot of paper. You know, the generals or the commanders or the major or the captains, they are not election officer by any way. They are just military with the guns. That means that they have nothing to do with elections. That means that they produce election list. We never know from where it came. Maybe it came from their local commanders or the battalions. They manufacture from their fake machinery. And now they are using that as a weapons to kill the people, to imprison the people. Yeah, that is completely unacceptable. And serious violation of human rights and abuse of human rights have been taking place across the nations. So we again call on international community to act quickly and decisively, especially for our ASEAN friends. This is the time that they have to act. If they do not act this time, again, I believe history will judge us harshly.